The radio crackles with German, panicked voices cutting through static. "Herr Brent, warum springt nicht ab?" He is burning. Why does he not bail out? The question repeats. Urgent. Confused. 3 Messerschmitts circle at 18,000 feet, watching a P-51 Mustang trail black smoke across the sky. The American fighter should be falling. The pilot should be dangling from a parachute. Instead, the Mustang banks hard left. The nose drops. Tracers arc from its guns. The lead Bf-109 explodes in a spray of aluminum and fire. The German wingmen break formation. Their radios erupt in disbelief. The burning plane just killed their leader. March 1944. The skies over central Germany are a meat grinder. The 8th Air Force has committed everything to daylight precision bombing. Waves of B-17s and B-24s crawl across Europe at 25,000 feet, dropping tons of high explosive on factories, rail yards, and oil refineries. The Luftwaffe bleeds them. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs tear into the formations with cannon fire and rockets. Loss rates exceed 10% on some missions. Entire squadrons evaporate over Schweinfurt or Brunswick. The bomber crews know the math. 25 missions to complete a tour. The odds say you will not make it. P-51 Mustangs change the equation. Long-range escorts that can follow the bombers all the way to the target and back. They carry drop tanks, extra fuel slung under the wings. They have the legs to reach Berlin and return. The Merlin engine gives them speed and altitude. The 650 caliber machine guns give them teeth, but they are still outnumbered, still fighting over enemy territory, still burning fuel with every mile deeper into the Reich. The smell inside a Mustang cockpit is leather and aviation gasoline. The engine roars 6 feet ahead, throwing heat back through the firewall. The stick vibrates with engine harmonics. The oxygen mask chafes. The radio hisses with chatter. Pilots call out enemy positions. Bombers report damage. Controllers vector fighters toward threats. It is organized chaos at 400 miles per hour. Fire is the nightmare. Every pilot knows it. Metal and fuel and oxygen. The Mustang carries 180 gallons of high-octane gasoline in tanks behind the cockpit and in the wings. A single tracer round in the wrong place and the aircraft becomes a flying crematorium. Standard procedure is absolute. If your plane catches fire, you bail out immediately. You do not think. You do not hesitate. You pull the canopy release. You roll inverted. You fall clear. You pull the ripcord. You take your chances with capture over burning alive at 300 mph. No one questions this. No one debates it. Fire means death in seconds. The doctrine is written in the charred remains of pilots who waited too long. But on this mission over Germany, one pilot sees fire differently. He sees it as a variable, a problem with parameters, a calculated risk. His name is Emmett L. Brennan, and he is about to rewrite the rules. Emmett L. Brennan was born in 1921 in a small town in upstate New York. His father ran a machine shop. His mother taught mathematics at the local high school. The house smelled of cutting oil and chalk dust. Dinner conversations revolved around tolerances, ratios, and the elegance of efficient design. Emmett learned early that precision mattered more than speed. He attended Cornell University in 1939, studied mechanical engineering with a focus on thermodynamics and fluid dynamics. He did not attend football games or fraternity parties. He spent weekends in the engineering library reading papers on combustion theory and heat transfer. Professors described him as methodical. Classmates called him quiet. He graduated in 1942 with honors and no clear plan beyond avoiding the draft through essential war work. The Army Air Forces recruited him anyway. They needed pilots. They needed them fast. Emmett did not fit the profile. He was tall and thin with wire-rimmed glasses. He spoke in careful sentences as if each word required structural verification. He did not drink heavily or chase thrills. But he passed the physical. He passed the aptitude tests. He was assigned to flight training in Arizona. Primary training was brutal. The heat turned cockpits into ovens. Instructors screamed over the intercom. Cadets washed out daily for hesitation, for fear, for inability to think under pressure. Emmett survived through analysis. He studied each maneuver as a physics problem. He calculated stall speeds and load factors. He memorized engine performance charts. He asked questions that irritated his instructors. Questions like, why do we always enter a spin the same way, and what is the mathematical relationship between angle of attack and lift coefficient? His instructors noted his technical aptitude but questioned his aggression. One evaluation called him overly cautious. Another flagged him for excessive deliberation under simulated combat stress. He was assigned to fighters anyway. The need for pilots outweighed concerns about temperament. Advanced training in California. He flew P-40s first, then P-51s. He learned gunnery, formation flying, navigation. He practiced dogfighting and bombing runs. He was competent but not exceptional. He did not have the instinctive aggression of natural fighter pilots. He did not react. He calculated. This made him slow in training exercises where every second mattered, but it also made him deliberate. He never panicked. He never froze. He simply processed variables and executed solutions. His squadron mates noticed something odd. Emmett kept a notebook. After every flight, he would sit in the ready room and sketch diagrams. He drew fuel flow rates and engine temperature curves. He documented how aircraft systems degraded under stress. He was building a mental database of failure modes. When other pilots played cards or wrote letters home, Emmett studied maintenance manuals and after-action reports. He was looking for patterns, trying to understand not just how to fly, but how aircraft failed and how pilots died. By late 1943, he was assigned to the 357th Fighter Group stationed in England. He arrived in January 1944. He flew his first combat mission in February. He was 22 years old. Aircraft fires kill faster than bullets. This is not theory. This is documented fact, verified by hundreds of deaths. The Army Air Forces maintains meticulous records. Crash investigators examine wreckage. Flight surgeons perform autopsies. Intelligence officers interview witnesses. The data is clear and horrifying. When a fighter catches fire in combat, the pilot has between 15 and 45 seconds before conditions become unsurvivable. The timeline is mechanical. Fire starts in the engine compartment or fuel system. Heat builds. Smoke fills the cockpit. Visibility drops to zero. Toxic fumes from burning hydraulic fluid and rubber cause disorientation. The canopy may jam from warped metal. Control cables may burn through. The aircraft may enter an uncontrolled spin if the pilot has not bailed out. By this point, he will not. He will ride the aircraft into the ground, or he will burn alive in the cockpit. Either way, the result is the same. Official doctrine is unambiguous. Pilots receive explicit training. If your aircraft catches fire, you execute immediate emergency egress. You do not attempt to diagnose the problem. You do not try to extinguish the flames. You do not assess whether the fire is controllable. You bail out. The procedure is drilled into muscle memory. Pull the canopy release. Disconnect oxygen and radio. Roll inverted. Push away from the aircraft. Free fall clear. Pull the ripcord at safe altitude. The entire sequence takes 8 seconds if executed correctly. Training films show the consequences of hesitation. Grainy footage of fighters trailing smoke. Some pilots bail out cleanly. Others wait too long. The film does not show what happens to those who wait, but instructors describe it in clinical detail. Burns over 90% of the body. Death from smoke inhalation. Impact. With the ground still strapped in the seat. The message is hammered home. Fire equals death unless you leave immediately. No exceptions. No debate. Survival statistics support the doctrine. Pilots who bail out within 20 seconds of fire ignition have a 70% survival rate. Pilots who wait longer have a 12% survival rate. The numbers are stark. The choice is obvious. Yet pilots still hesitate. Some freeze from fear. Some refuse to abandon their aircraft. Some believe they can save the plane. Psychologists study this phenomenon. They call it target fixation or commitment bias. Pilots become so focused on completing the mission that they ignore survival instincts. The result is always the same. The pilot dies. His aircraft crashes. The mission fails anyway. Commanders address this in briefings. They emphasize that a live pilot can fly again. A dead pilot is a permanent loss. The war needs experienced aviators more than it needs martyrs. Bail out, survive, fight another day. This is doctrine. This is procedure. This is how the Air Force keeps pilots alive in a war that consumes them at terrifying rates. But doctrine assumes all fires are equal. It assumes all aircraft respond the same way. It does not account for variables. It does not consider that fire location matters, or that some blazes are controllable, or that a pilot with perfect knowledge of his aircraft systems might calculate a different outcome. Emmett Brennan could not stop thinking about fire. It started after his 8th mission. A P-51 from another squadron caught fire during a dogfight over France. Emmett watched from 2,000 feet above. The Mustang trailing black smoke. The pilot bailed out immediately. Textbook procedure. The pilot survived. But Emmett kept replaying the sequence. He had seen the initial hit, a 20mm cannon round striking the right wing root. He had seen the smoke color, black and thick, oil fire, not fuel. He calculated the time from impact to bailout. 11 seconds. Fast, correct. But Emmett wondered if it was necessary. An oil fire in the wing root would not reach the cockpit immediately. The P-51's fuel tanks were self-sealing and positioned behind the pilot. The engine firewall was designed to contain forward fires for at least 60 seconds. If the pilot had known exactly where the fire was burning, could he have stayed in the aircraft longer? Could he have maintained combat effectiveness? Emmett started studying P-51 fire incidents. He read accident reports. He interviewed maintenance crews. He examined burned wreckage when aircraft crashed on the bases. He was building a database, where fires started and how they propagated, which systems failed first. He learned that P-51 fires fell into distinct categories. Engine fires were the most common, usually caused by fuel line ruptures or damaged oil coolers. These fires stayed forward of the firewall for 40 to 90 seconds before breaching into the cockpit. Wing fires were less common but more dangerous. If a fuel tank was punctured and ignited, the fire would consume the wing structure rapidly. But self-sealing tanks often prevented ignition. Many wing hits that produced smoke were actually hydraulic fluid fires or burning paint, dramatically visible but not immediately catastrophic. Cockpit fires were rare and unsurvivable. If fire reached the pilot's compartment, there was no time to analyze. You bailed immediately. Emmett realized the doctrine treated all fires as cockpit fires, immediate and lethal. But most fires were not cockpit fires. Most started elsewhere and took time to become critical. If a pilot could identify the fire location and estimate propagation time, he might have a window, a brief period where the aircraft remained controllable and weapons remained functional. The question was whether that window was large enough to matter. Emmett ran calculations. He estimated heat transfer rates through aluminum skin. He calculated airflow patterns through damaged fuselages. He factored in altitude effects on combustion. His conclusion was uncomfortable. In specific circumstances, with precise knowledge of fire location, a pilot might safely remain in a burning aircraft for 60 to 120 seconds, long enough to complete an attack run, long enough to defend bombers under assault, long enough to make a difference. But the margin for error was zero. Miscalculate the fire location and you die. Misjudge the propagation rate and you die. Hesitate when conditions deteriorate and you die. It was a gamble with death as the stake. Emmett documented his findings in his notebook. He did not share them with anyone. He knew what the response would be. Doctrine exists for a reason. Pilots who deviate die. But he could not stop thinking about it, about the mathematics of flame and the calculus of acceptable risk. March 16, 1944. Briefing at 0430 hours. The operations room smells of coffee and cigarette smoke. Pilots sit on wooden benches facing a large map of Europe. Red strings mark the route, England to Schweinfurt, Germany. Deep penetration, maximum range. The target is ball-bearing factories, critical to German war production, intelligence estimates heavy fighter resistance. The Luftwaffe will defend Schweinfurt with everything available. The briefing officer outlines the mission parameters. 48 P-51s will escort 3 bomber groups, approximately 120 B-17s carrying 500 bombs. Takeoff at 0600. Rendezvous with bombers over the channel at 0645. Climb to escort altitude of 26,000 feet. Expected enemy contact begins at the German border. Fuel calculations are tight. Drop tanks will extend range but must be jettisoned before combat. Each pilot will have roughly 18 minutes of combat time over the target area before fuel reserves mandate return. Weather is clear. Visibility unlimited. No excuses for missing rendezvous points. Fighter tactics are standard. Stay with the bombers. Do not chase kills away from the formation. Protect the heavies. That is the mission. Everything else is secondary. Pilots are dismissed to their aircraft. Emmett walks across the frozen grass to his P-51, tail number 413296. He named it nothing. Some pilots paint names and knows art. Emmett sees no point. The aircraft is a machine, a collection of systems with known performance parameters. He conducts his pre-flight inspection methodically. Control surfaces, tire pressure, fuel quantity, ammunition load. 1,880 rounds of .50 caliber. He checks the engine compartment personally. He inspects fuel lines and oil coolers. He runs his hand along the firewall seams. Everything is secure. The crew chief watches him with bemused tolerance. Most pilots trust the ground crew and climb straight in. Emmett trusts nothing he has not verified. He straps in. The cockpit is cold. Frost on the inside of the canopy. He connects oxygen and radio. He primes the engine. The Merlin coughs and catches. 12 cylinders, firing in sequence. The propeller blurs. The aircraft vibrates with contained power. He runs through the checklist. Oil pressure, fuel pressure, magnetos, generator, everything normal. At 0558, the tower clears the group for takeoff. Emmett taxis into position. He advances the throttle. The Mustang accelerates down the runway. The tail comes up. At 110 mph, he rotates. The wheels leave the ground. England drops away beneath him. He climbs through thin clouds into clear sky. The formation assembles over the channel. 48 fighters in stepped flights. Emmett flies as number 3 in the second flight. Not lead, not tail, just another pilot in the formation. They turn east. The bombers appear ahead. Massive formations of B-17s stacked in boxes. Contrails streaming behind them. The fighters slide into escort positions. High cover, low cover, flanking elements. Emmett settles into cruise. He scans the sky. Empty blue in all directions. The radio is quiet. Just the drone of the engine and the whistle of wind over the canopy. They cross into German airspace at 0812. The first fighters appear 9 minutes later. The Messerschmitts come from above. 12 fighters in 3 flights diving from 30,000 feet. They have altitude and speed. The American formation reacts. Flights break to intercept. Emmett's flight leader calls the break. They climb hard toward the threat. The lead Bf-1009 opens fire at 800 yards. Too far. Emmett holds his fire, waits for range to close. At 100 yards, he presses the trigger. Tracers converge. The Messerschmitt breaks left, trailing smoke. Emmett does not follow. He reverses back toward the bombers. More enemy fighters are diving on the B-17s. A Focke-Wulf 190 makes a head-on pass at a bomber. Emmett angles to intercept. He fires a 2-second burst. Misses. The FW-190 flashes past and climbs away. Emmett checks his 6. Clear. He looks for his flight. Scattered. The formation has dissolved into individual dogfights spread across 10 miles of sky. He is alone. A bomber below him takes hits. Smoke pours from number 3 engine. It drops out of formation. 2. Messerschmitt circle, back to finish it. Emmett dives. Full throttle. The airspeed climbs past 400 mph. He closes on the trailing Bf-109, fires from 300 yards. The enemy fighter explodes. Pieces tumble through the air. The second Messerschmitt sees him and brakes hard, right. Emmett pulls to follow. 4 Gs press him into the seat. His vision tunnels. He loses sight of the target. Then the impact. A hard metallic crack. The aircraft shudders. Alarm sound. He feels heat immediately. The engine temperature gauge spikes. Oil pressure drops. Smoke seeps into the cockpit. His first thought is mechanical. Assess the damage. He checks the instruments. Coolant temperature critical. Oil pressure falling. Engine RPM unstable. He has been hit in the engine compartment. Probably a 20mm round through the coolant system. The Merlin engine is overheating. Without coolant, it will seize in minutes. Smoke thickens. It smells chemical. Burning glycol and oil. His eyes water. Visibility inside the cockpit drops. He can barely see the instrument panel. Standard procedure screams in his mind, fire, fire, bail out, now. His hand moves toward the canopy release. Then he stops. He forces himself to think. The smoke is not black, it is white and gray. Coolant smoke, not fuel. The fire is in the engine compartment, forward of the firewall. He can feel heat, but not intense heat, not cockpit fire. The engine is still running, rough but functional. He still has control. He calculates. The firewall will contain the fire for perhaps 90 seconds, maybe less. He checks his fuel, enough for 12 minutes. He looks down. The crippled B-17 is still there, still struggling to stay airborne. 3 more German fighters are closing on it. If Emmett bails out now, that bomber dies. 10 men burn or fall or get captured. If he stays, he might buy them time. He might drive off the fighters. He might give them a chance. The smoke is worse. He coughs. His throat burns. The canopy is fogging. He cannot see clearly. Every instinct demands escape. Every regulation demands it. Every survival briefing demands it. But Emmett does not bail. He pushes the stick forward and dives toward the attacking fighters. The first Messerschmitt does not see him. It is focused on the bomber, lining up a deflection shot on the B-17's tail. Emmett drops behind it, range 200 yards. He fires. The 650s converge. Tracers punch through the enemy's fuselage. The Bf-109 snaps into a spin and falls away smoking. Kill number 1. The other 2 German fighters break off. They see the burning P-51 diving at them. They see the smoke trail. They assume it is a death dive. They are wrong. Emmett pulls level. The heat in the cockpit is intense now. The instrument panel is too hot to touch. Smoke pours from the vents. He can barely breathe. His oxygen mask filters some of it, but not enough. He estimates 60 seconds before the fire breaches the firewall. Maybe less. He needs to make them count. The second Messerschmitt reverses toward him. A head-on pass, closing speed over 600 per hour. Both pilots fire simultaneously. Emmett feels impacts. Rounds punch through his right wing. The Germans' rounds miss the cockpit. Emmett's do not miss. The Messerschmitt's canopy shatters. The fighter pitches up violently and stalls. It falls inverted. Kill number 2. The third fighter is climbing away, running. Emmett chases. His engine is dying. The temperature gauge is pegged. The RPM is erratic. He is losing power, but he still has speed from the dive. He closes to 400 yards, fires. The Messerschmitt takes hits in the wing root. It does not explode. It just rolls slowly to the right and enters a flat spin. The pilot bails out. Kill number 3. Emmett looks for more targets. His vision is blurred from smoke. Tears stream down his face. The heat is unbearable. He sees another fighter, a Focke-Wulf 190, diving on a different bomber. Emmett turns toward it. His controls feel mushy. Hydraulic pressure is dropping. The fire must have damaged lines. He compensates, flies with stick pressure alone. The FW-190 sees him. It breaks off the attack and turns to engage. The German pilot is aggressive. He probably sees the smoke and assumes an easy kill. They merge, both turning hard. Emmett's aircraft shudders on the edge of a stall. He forces it tighter. The Focke-Wulf tries to turn inside him but cannot. The FW-190 is faster and more powerful. But Emmett's aircraft is lighter now. Fuel nearly gone. Ammunition half expended. He has a tighter turning radius. He gets angle. Fires from 100 yards. The FW-190's tail disintegrates. The fighter tumbles out of control. Kill number 4. The cockpit explodes in flame. The firewall has failed. Fire erupts from the vents. Emmett's flight suit ignites. He tears at the straps. Burns his hands. He has seconds. He pulls the stick back. Nose up. Full climb. The airspeed bleeds off. The fire stream changes direction, blows back toward the tail instead of into the cockpit. The flames reduce. Not extinguished, but controlled. He levels off at 28,000 feet. The engine quits. Silence, except for the wind. The propeller windmills. No power, just drag. The Mustang becomes a glider with the aerodynamics of a brick. Emmett trims for best glide speed, 180 km/h. He calculates distance. Altitude 28,001 feet. Glide ratio approximately 10-1. That gives him 50 miles, maybe less with battle damage. He checks his position, deep in Germany. The bombers are 15 miles west, heading home. He cannot reach England. He might reach Belgium, might reach Allied lines. The fire in the cockpit is dying. Without fuel and without airflow from the engine, it starves. Smoke lingers, but the flames are gone. Emmett's hands are burned, 2nd degree at least. The pain is sharp and constant. His flight suit is charred. The smell of burned leather and synthetic fabric fills the cockpit. He ignores it. He focuses on the glide. He adjusts heading, southwest, toward the front lines. The Mustang descends at 2,000 feet per minute. He has 14 minutes before he reaches the ground. He scans for enemy fighters, none visible. They are focused on the bombers or have disengaged to refuel. He is alone in a dead aircraft falling silently through German sky. At 18,000 feet, he jettisons the canopy. The rush of cold air clears the smoke. His eyes stop burning. He can see clearly now. The landscape below is patchwork farmland, villages, roads. No obvious landmarks. He estimates he is 40 miles inside Germany. At 12,000 feet, he passes over a German airfield. He sees fighters on the ground, mechanics and pilots looking up. They do not shoot. He is too high and moving too fast. They probably assume he will crash before reaching Allied territory. They are probably right. At 8,000 feet, he crosses a river. The Moselle or the Saar? He is not sure. Navigation is difficult without instruments and landmarks. He aims for the setting sun, west, always west. At 5,000 feet, he sees smoke on the horizon. Artillery fire, the front lines. He might make it. At 3,000 feet, the ground rises. Hills. He will not clear them. He looks for a field, somewhere flat, somewhere open. He sees a pasture. Cows scatter as his shadow passes over. He lines up. No flaps. The hydraulics are gone. No landing gear. The mechanism is burned. He will belly in. At 500 feet, he pulls back slightly, bleeds off speed. At 200 feet, he flares. The Mustang settles. The belly hits frozen ground at 120 miles per hour. The impact is violent. Metal screams. The aircraft skids, dirt and grass spray. The left wing digs in. The Mustang spins. Emmett is thrown against the straps. His head hits the gun sight. Everything goes gray. The aircraft stops. Silence. Then voices, shouting in French. Hands pull him from the cockpit. He tries to stand. His legs buckle. He looks at his hands. The gloves are melted to his skin. Someone wraps a blanket around him. Someone else offers water. He drinks. He asks where he is. Belgium. 5 miles inside Allied lines. He made it. Emmett wakes in a field hospital, white canvas ceiling, the smell of disinfectant and morphine. His hands are bandaged, 2nd and 3rd degree burns. The doctors say he will keep his fingers, but the scarring will be permanent. He does not care. He is alive. An intelligence officer arrives on the 2nd day, captain from 8th Air Force Headquarters. He wants to know what happened. Emmett explains. The hit, the fire, the decision to stay, the 4 kills. The glide to Belgium. The officer takes notes. He asks questions. How long was the aircraft burning? How did Emmett control the fire? Why did he not bail out? Emmett answers each question methodically. He describes the fire location, the engine compartment, forward of the firewall. He explains his calculations, heat transfer rates, firewall integrity time, the window of survivability. The officer listens without expression. When Emmett finishes, the officer asks if anyone can confirm the kills. Emmett does not know. He was alone. The bombers were below him. Maybe their gunners saw something. The officer leaves, returns 3 days later with documents, gun camera footage from Emmett's aircraft. The film survived despite the fire. The camera was mounted in the wing, protected from the cockpit blaze. The footage is grainy but clear. 4 distinct engagements, 4 German fighters destroyed. The timestamps show the entire sequence lasted 90 seconds. The officer also brings intelligence reports, intercepted German radio transmissions from the mission, Luftwaffe pilots reporting a burning American fighter that refused to disengage, confusion in their voices, disbelief. One transmission translated, "He is on fire, why is he not bailing out?" Another, "The burning one just shot down Lieutenant Schmidt." The Germans could not understand it. Doctrine said, "Burning pilots bailed immediately." This one did not. This one kept fighting. This one killed 4 of their fighters while his aircraft disintegrated around him. The officer tells Emmett he is being recommended for the Distinguished Service Cross. Emmett does not respond. He does not care about medals. The officer asks if Emmett will brief other pilots on his technique. Emmett hesitates. He knows what happened was not technique. It was calculation with incomplete data. It was risk measured against outcome. It worked once. It might not work again. But the officer insists. The Air Force needs every advantage. If staying in a burning aircraft can save bombers, other pilots need to know. Emmett agrees under one condition. He will explain the physics, the parameters, the specific circumstances, but he will not call it a tactic. He will not encourage anyone to repeat it. Fire is still lethal. Bailout is still correct 99% of the time. What he did was an exception, a narrow window that existed because of specific variables. The officer accepts this. A training memorandum is drafted. It does not mandate staying in burning aircraft. It simply notes that engine compartment fires may allow brief, continued operation if the pilot can verify fire location and firewall integrity. The memorandum is distributed quietly. No fanfare, no policy change, just information. Emmett Brennan returns to the United States in May 1944. His hands heal enough to fly, but he is not returned to combat. He is assigned to a training squadron in Nevada. He teaches fighter tactics to new pilots. He emphasizes systems knowledge. Understanding how aircraft fail, recognizing failure modes, making decisions based on data rather than panic. He never tells the story of the burning Mustang unless asked. When he does tell it, he focuses on the calculations, the physics, the narrow margin between survival and death. He discourages heroics. He discourages imitation. What worked for him might kill someone else. Different hit location, different aircraft, different fire. The variables matter. Some pilots listen. Others ignore him. They hear the story as legend. The man who shot down 4 fighters while burning. They miss the point. Emmett does not correct them. He simply continues teaching. After the war, he leaves the Air Force, returns to New York, works as a mechanical engineer for an aircraft manufacturer. He designs fire suppression systems, improved firewalls, better engine compartment sealing. His work influences post-war fighter design, but his name does not appear in the literature. He is one engineer among thousands. The Distinguished Service Cross sits in a drawer. He never displays it, never mentions it. When his children ask about the war, he gives brief answers. He flew fighters. He survived. That is all. He dies in 1987 at the age of 66. Heart attack. Quick, his obituary mentions his engineering career. It mentions military service. It does not mention Schweinfurt or the 4 kills or the burning aircraft. Most people who read it do not know what he did. But in Air Force archives, the gun camera footage remains. Grainy black and white film of a burning P-51 engaging 4 enemy fighters in 90 seconds. Training officers still show it occasionally. They use it to teach decision-making under extreme conditions. They emphasize that Emmett's choice was not reckless. It was calculated. He knew his aircraft. He knew fire propagation. He knew the risks. He made a decision based on incomplete information, and it worked. The lesson is not to stay in burning aircraft. The lesson is that doctrine is a guideline, not a law of physics. Sometimes circumstances demand deviation. Sometimes survival requires accepting risk that doctrine forbids. Sometimes the math says you have 90 seconds and you trust the math. Emmett Brennan trusted the math. He stayed in the fire. He bought time for a crippled bomber. He killed 4 enemy fighters. He glided 50 miles on a dead engine. He landed in a pasture 5 miles inside Allied lines. He survived burns and impact and the statistical impossibility of what he did. Not through luck, through calculation, through the stubborn belief that understanding systems matters more than following rules. His aircraft was scrapped. His name faded, but the idea remains. That knowledge is a weapon. That precision can overcome panic. That sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the most rational. And that in war, as in engineering, the difference between disaster and survival often comes down to knowing exactly how much heat a firewall can take.